council meetings in the past. The reason I'm running for town council is because I feel different insights should be provided to attain the needs versus the wants for all of the Indian Trail. Indian Trail is growing, there's no doubt about it. You can't stop progress. But if you don't do progress in the correct manner, it's going to be a continued disaster. Also, the consequences that you're going to be facing is higher taxes. Can you have growth with low taxes? Is a possibility. The question is, you put your heads together to attain that goal. I have some ideas. Yes, you can do it. But you can't do all the growth all at one time. Nearby towns and cities have taken several years, if not decades, to get where they are. Indian Trail is still a young community. We're still growing. We're still learning. We just need to take the time to learn together. I've also been involved in Indian Trail County government by going to council meetings and committee meetings since November 2010. Because of the theater, not because I'm against the theater, but because of how it was handled to our neighborhood next door. That wall was put there because of my neighborhood. All we asked was for safety and security for our neighbors. We wanted good neighbors, as we wanted good neighbors for everyone else. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's why I want to be a part of town council, to have ideas, insights, and possible to come up with some solutions that can benefit everyone, not just a few, not just south of 74, north of 74, but all of Indian Trail. Thank you.
How's everybody doing this evening? My name is Scott Haydel. When I walked up on stage, everybody said the stealth candidate because of the fact that I probably am a stealth candidate. I was born and raised, since I am a stealth candidate, to give you just a little bit of background in my life. I was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. I grew up there for the majority of my life. Left there when I met the love of my life, my best friend, my wife. We got married in 97. She's not here, she's actually working right now, so she'll be right. We got married in 97 and decided that we wanted to see other parts of the country. So we moved a couple different places, Hilton Head, South Carolina, Washington, D.C., and then ended up here about 11 years ago. I have two beautiful daughters. One's in the front row right here, Anna. I also have Abigail. She's actually a dance class right now. Why am I running? A couple of candidates mentioned because of their daughters, granddaughters, and exactly. It started as I've always enjoyed government, mainly at the state and the federal level. Never really been involved other than, spent a lot of time on the internet, spent a lot of time as a conservative, deciding on views and issues, once again, at the state and federal level. So I decided, what better life experience to give our children than to see them witness the government process from the point that you go to the Board of Elections and put your name on a ballot, to the point that you have these forums, to what I'm going to consider a truly grassroots campaign, to an election day. And, I thought about it, and I said, what happens if you win? If I win, then I serve with honesty, integrity, I serve with the leadership that I know. But if I don't win, I still win because of what I've given my two girls, the opportunity to learn how government truly works. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Jerry Morse. I'd like to thank Ms. Rebecca for inviting us here to speak and on behalf of the League of Women Voters. I've lived here for quite a while. I've lived in the same place in Indian Trail for 27 years. I'm approximately 52 years old. I'm married, I have a wife, a daughter, and a grandchild. We all live in this same community. The one reason that I'm running for Indian Trail Town Council is because my past experience with dealing with Indian Trail Town Council and the lack of representation of the citizens, and not just my daughter and my granddaughter, but my parents, every citizen that lives in Indian Trail. Indian Trail, when I first got involved with the politics, and that was basically to go voice some concerns over an animal ordinance. And when I went Indian Trail isn't just a community made up of a certain demographic. It is a diverse community here. We have a lot of folks from out of town, from Florida, from Louisiana, from New York, Chicago, and we have some of the old timers that I like to refer to that were born and raised here, the original 2700 back in 1990, as they call it. What I noticed is there was an unwillingness for the council to be open and transparent and to be civil with the residents when we came out to speak. There was a wall built up there. It's like an investment, a piece of plexiglass that's positioned between the 5 council members and any resident that wants to speak out on behalf of an issue that they have at heart. And that shouldn't be the case. The council works for you, the taxpayer, and the citizens. They work for me. A council should never be self-serving. A council should have an open mind and listen to the residents. And I'm here to represent all those residents that aren't being represented presently, the blue-collar worker, the regular guy. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Yeah. My name is Gary Savoie, and I'm actually running for town council on behalf of my wife. She heard me talking about things I want to do and things I like to see, and she asked me to stop being an armchair quarterback and actually do something about it. And I think that I have the leadership experience in being the asset management business for 15 years to actually make Indian Trail the best city it can be, and I know it can be. I think I would like to bring in civility in the town council, making and giving the citizens pride in its government. Thank you.
Though they all deserved it, could we leave off the applause until the very end? It takes up time and it's distracting sometimes. Our first question will be to Mr. Drehs. I have a last name that's hard to pronounce. Some citizens feel that a larger town hall needs to be built, containing also a community center and a senior center. How do you feel about this center?
I assume you can still hear me. I believe we need a bigger town hall because when we have controversial issues, I am positive that the capacity of that building is exceeded. Some of the people on the town council have said that they were afraid of the crowd. I'm afraid for the crowd. If one little fire started in that building with that one exit, I'm just afraid of what's going to happen. That place is jam-packed, and I think it's unsafe. I'm not convinced, nor do I know how we can possibly pay for a community center and senior center and all that other stuff. But I know we need a bigger place to have a town council meeting. If this isn't welcoming when you ask your citizens to show up and give their opinion, when they have to stand along the back of the wall, there's not even enough room to breathe in there. Thank you.
My views on having a larger town hall facility depends on if the need is justified first. I think Mr. Drehs pointed out the civic building is too small. Size of a one-car garage, kind of embarrassing. But again, where's the money going to come from to pay for the facility? Some of my suggestions are to either add on to the existing civic building, maybe add on to the White building, town hall building, or add on to the community or cultural building. That's not feasible. Look for existing commercial property within Indian Trail, something we can pay on a monthly basis, low rent, and then maybe at that point, maybe 4 or 5 years down the road, we have enough funds to build the facility that we need and to be proud of in Indian Trail.
I personally feel that a large town hall is something that's really not needed, or maybe needed for space-wise, physically-wise. It's not a good decision at this time for Indian Trail. We were easily able to meet here this evening, and from what I see, there are plenty of seats that could fit any amount of residents that we want. There are many schools that I'm sure would be willing to hold town hall meetings that we feel would be very controversial, and that would draw a large amount of people. I feel personally that money could be probably better spent elsewhere. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the $1,000,000 question, or I should say the $5 million question. You know, presently, town hall is very small, and I believe one of the reasons that it's adequate at this time is because of the issues that I just raised previously. When I first started coming to council meetings, I was not met with open arms. I was met with hostility. And people called me crazy for even going back to town hall, to walk in those doors, and to be demonized, villainized, and be disrespected. To have my friends and family who wanted to speak out on issues and be called names. And I won't go into that because that is so negative, and I don't want this to be negative. But the thing that I noticed is that we have somewhat of a hidden agenda going on in Indian Trail. We once had a town hall, and it's a beautiful facility. It's now the Cultural Arts Center. Now, I love arts as much as anyone else out here, but that Cultural Arts Center is quite adequate if it were to be transformed back into the town hall as it was built in the first place. The existing town hall should be the Cultural Arts Center. Presently, we have taken on a lot of debt. A few years ago, we were in the black, and now we're deeply in the red. As much as I, as being 52 years old and having my mother, who is a little over 70, enjoy a nice community center and a senior center, it's just not practical at this time to increase the debt load on the citizens here and raise your taxes once again. So there comes a point where you have to just be firm and say no. And saying no is very difficult in these times. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I believe right now that a larger town hall is not feasible. I believe we should focus on the issues at hand, appropriate and adequate public safety. Our infrastructure needs building, specifically Old Monroe Road, and putting our efforts in there. Also, I do believe that there does need to be a sense of pride from the citizens with our government. So bringing civility into and good communication, collaborative discussion into town council is where we should focus our efforts. Also, we need to focus on bringing jobs into Indian Trail, looking to reduce the residential burden, tax burden, and bringing commercial businesses in to help bring in that extra tax revenue. Then when it becomes appropriate, then a due diligence and proper study can be done to see if it's feasible to have a new town hall.
Well,
Can you hear me?
as I've answered that question once before, my views are, yes, we do need a new town hall, and yes, there should be a Senate meeting. However, Indian Trail has a lot on its plate right now, and we need to take care of those meetings. I like the practice of alternatives of office for a town hall, such as using the sort of funds when those cases occur. So, I think at this time, if I was on the council and I was asked for the vote for a new town hall, I would vote no, based on the fact that how we're going to pay for it. Which brings me again to the next question, after the next question, which brings me again to the argument of, right now we're at 75% resident, 25% business-based tax. If we increase commerce, we will bring in more tax revenue that will answer the question how we're going to pay for it. And that's why our other projects are so important that we get started and we finish those to the end, to bring in commerce, to bring in jobs. And as soon as we can get that message across, then I think the new sheriff will be better off for it. Thank you.
Mr. Faulkenberry, I believe you're next. If Indian Trail needs more deputies for law enforcement, how should this be funded?
That's a good question. If we are to add more deputies, the best way to fund those deputies is go to the budget first. Cut wasteful spending. I've heard the idea of using grants, but grants more or less you put the deputies on leeway. Eventually you have to pay for those full amount of grants after 4 years' time, if I'm not mistaken. The main issue would be to look at the budget and see where things made for those deputies. But other than that, this is going to be an issue to be addressed for several years to come. Thank you.
In regards to funding deputies, I'm a firm believer that the money is there without raising taxes. If we just are willing to go look forward, make the tough decisions, cut where needed to cut through the budget. As many citizens, myself included, through these economic times, we have all been asked to tighten our belts voluntarily. And we have done that. There's no reason government cannot tighten its belt and find money to increase the public safety, which I'm a firm believer is one of the principal roles of government is to have our citizens feel safe. Because once your citizens feel safe, then your commerce will thrive. Thank you.
Another great question. Mr. Faulkenberry alluded there, or stated, when you do get grants for additional deputies, at some point in time down the road, you will have to pay for those. So that's like kicking the can down the road. Over the last 9 or 10 months, I'm sure you folks heard about the sheriff's department and the police department debacle. All it was about was renewing a contract with the sheriff's department. And at that time, a lot of citizens came out and they said, look, we don't need a police department. We don't need to spend $8 million for the police department. You still need to extend the contract with the sheriff's department and contract those deputies. Well, we had a couple of those deputies that were on the grants, and that's going away for traffic enforcement. And the reason I know this is I've been attending the council meetings and the different committees and boards, and I'm learning this information over this time. But if we are to, if we have a study now, we fought hard for this study, and that's really what was needed for a long time. It was promised before, that we would have a law enforcement study to decide if we do need to break away from the sheriff's department and create our own police department. So the study's coming out here shortly at a cost of about $30,000 to identify what our needs are going to be. If our needs dictate that we need more law enforcement, then I believe we can go into the budget and begin cutting some of the spending. We're spending vast amount of money on wayfinding signs that was just recently passed. I don't know the particulars on 125,000 initially, but I've heard numbers up to 400,000. So if it's decided that we do need to get some additional deputies, one of the things we can do is with the Citizen Academy and the search program, we can start having some of our own citizens provide some of those services. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The last thing I would ever want to do is raise taxes. There is currently a study that will be done to look at our public safety, see what our needs are, and look at the size of our community right now. And when that study comes back, the council will have to look at it and decide, where the money would come from. Of course, the first thing is public safety, ensuring we have the appropriate and adequate public safety for all our citizens. I think the first thing to do is go through the budget to see where we can cut some dollars. Then I think looking at possible grants could work also. Even though that possible grants don't pay for the whole length of time, even if you get a grant for a year or 2 years payment, then at least you can put that in the budget later on in the next year's budget or the budget after that. It's like a citizen who's paying a house payment and they tell you can go a whole year without and then continue making that payment later on. And I think that's the way to approach it.
Keeping our families safe is the number one priority in the city. And as past president of our HOA, I was able to add amendments to the community out of the current budget without raising assessment duties. And any smart financial person, when they make the budget, they would always build in a little bit of fact. Having answered this question before, my answer was, I will take it out of the current budget. I will find the fact, pay for it. If that's not there, then certain services have to be reduced to pay for it. Because like I said before, the number one concern and responsibility of the town is the safety of the citizens. Thank you.
That deputy costs about $90,000 a year. That's salary, equipment, all that insurance. The budget is $12 million. I don't like talking in big generalities, but the reality is with $12 million budget, maybe there's enough fat for a deficit. Maybe. I don't know that. I've kept a pretty good eye on the budget over the last couple of years. Seems to me like they're doing a pretty good job. And we should not only it's not only our moral obligation to keep our citizens and primarily our children safe, it's a financial one. If you want to see your property values drop, watch the crime rate go up. Nobody will want to live here. So if I might be the only one on this table, I don't think we need to raise taxes, but I'll tell you right now, if I got to do it to keep kids safe, I'll do it in a heartbeat. Thank you.
Mr. Hayden, I believe you're next. Apparently, the Enquirer Journal said that 3 candidates for town council favored firing the town manager. Do you favor that, or are you against the firing, and why?
I will answer this question honestly. I don't want to just push the question off, but I will be honest. Like I said in my opening remarks, I did this more as a life experience for my children, so they can see. I have not been the most involved, so I would not know the personality nor the leadership ability of the current town manager, so I wouldn't want to comment on whether I would terminate or keep him or her based on that. But I think, as a side note, that is one thing that I do bring to this election is somebody that's not subjective, somebody that is going in objective to be able to see these issues from just a pure lay person. Thank you.
Town manager Joe Flanders, from my experience, takes direction from the council, and from what I can tell, he takes that direction well. Now, the one observation that I will make about the town manager is that I'm not sure if the town manager should be involved in every single board and committee, and to be there at those board and committees. My understanding is with a committee and a board, those are made up of the residents of Indian Trail so that they can provide direction to the council, provide suggestions what they'd like to see. And sometimes it seems like that's a conflict of interest if you have persons of the council sitting there or the town manager. So that concerns me. Now, to ask the question, do you believe that he should be fired? Well, that's crazy. That's open. If you're that close-minded of an individual and you walk into a company and you just look around and go, I don't have the facts or the figures or the reasons or the whys, and you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. That's pretty cold and callous. And before anything would ever occur like that, I do believe that there needs to be some due diligence and see if there is a problem. If there isn't a problem, then why is there even talk about firing the town manager? The town manager is there to manage the projects that are at hand. Right now, we have 5 major projects that are underway. Quite honestly, I manage a group of people that build control panels inside. Well, once in a while, I get out there and I build panels inside. But the key thing is to keep everything rolling. And from what I can see, the town manager is doing that. Thank you very much.
I think the town manager is doing a great job. I think the firing came from other individuals who are looking to place someone else in that position, and that's where the firing seems to be. I think Joe has tremendous experience, tremendous insight, and his staff is just phenomenal. Each one of his staff are subject matter experts, and he has a short staff. I believe with what he's done, with the limited amount of staff that he has, is just remarkable.
I agree with Senator Morse that you just don't go in and say it's fired without doing some research. I think the reason why anyone is going to be fired. I've met with the town manager on several occasions, and I will say firsthand, the CFO and the controller of major businesses, Mr. Joe Fivers knows what he's doing as town manager. For whatever reason, he's doing a good job. Whatever reason people want to fire him, they have to tell me why. Also, we do have projects underway, and having talked to Mr. Fivers, he's very adept in writing grants, knowing how to apply for grants. He has experience as a town manager, and I think that's what we all look at: his experience, his integrity, and he's able to do a good job. He's able to bring us a good audit rating, and he's able to move this town forward. And these allegations, in my belief, are just not credit worthy, in my belief. Thank you.
I also agree that I think Joe is doing a great job. I think Mr. Fivers brings the experience that we needed, and this kind of is an indication of part of the problem, I believe, in Indian Trail town government, in that we're so busy bickering with each other, we can't get stuff done. In the Army, we used to call it when senior officers would make the junior officers look stupid, make them look good about eating your gum. And every time I see that, it just makes my blood boil. If you're taking a swipe at this guy that's on the council or that guy that's manager, what are you doing for that guy's credibility when he goes up to the Union County Board of Commissioners and as a town manager and wants something or needs to work with people? I think we need to act like adults, and I would strive to make Indian Trail Town Council meetings boring and professional again.
So I'll answer the question with a question. Has Joe Fivers done anything to be fired for? Also, has he done anything wrong and unethical? Many of you don't know, when Mr. Fivers applied for the York County manager position, I was there as a cheerleader. I was there in Rockville that night. Spoke to several people in the audience regarding Joe Fivers. I had an opportunity to speak to Joe, and also had an opportunity to speak to other candidates. But until there's a justification to show he has to be fired, no. If I'm elected for town council, I have no intent of firing anybody. I have to find out if there's a justification. Like anything else in the other job in the United States of America, you have to have probable cause. I haven't yet to see probable cause. Thank you.
I believe Mr. Morse, you're first up on this one. Because Indian Trail is spread out and on both sides of Highway 74, do you think having district representation would be a fair way for citizens' opinions to be heard?
Absolutely. Indian Trail poses a very challenging area for Sheriff's Department, for fire services, for entertainment, places to put entertainment. And it also has a diverse way of life. You have horse farms, you have residential areas that are single family, 1, 2, and 3 acres, and then you have 5 homes to an acre in some parts. The density of Indian Trail is quite different in one side of it than another. We used to be 2,700 folks spread out all over. Now we're about 35,000 and still growing. What concerns me is fairness for everyone and for everyone to be represented in Indian Trail, regardless where they live. I don't want to see a community, and I'm not saying it's happening now, but in the future, I would not want to see a community or an area of Indian Trail that has a high population concentration, and all council members are chosen from that area just due to the numbers. I would like to see it districts based on the balance of area and numbers, so that you have 5 or 6 council members. Ideally, it would be perhaps 4 districts with 2 at large. And this way, they would have to work together so that to ensure that if they're going to be bringing in road improvements, or they're going to be bringing in the theater, or they're going to be bringing in a sports complex, or a ball field, or a car wash, that they all work together to make sure everyone gets their fair share. And it doesn't just become, we over here are in control and we get it all and the rest of you just pay for it. Thank you.
I am not opposed to districting. I just would like to ensure that the proper due diligence and study is done first. Again, I don't want to see a cluster of candidates from one area having total vote on the council. Also, I don't want to see 2 good qualified people be eliminated because of where they live. I think districting would be good. I think also at large and a good balance between the 2. But first, I would definitely like to see a study done on how the districting would be broken out.
I believe that each area should have fair representation and not to overload one area. So we have a council where you have a large concentration of your members from one particular subdivision. I don't think that's democratic, and I think it's bad for the town. Just to continue what the candidate Savoie said, you have to see how it's spread out, how the numbers look, and if you have 2 really good candidates that are going to do good for the town, and they happen to be in the same subdivision, you have to look at that and say, well, here we have a situation where these 2 candidates are outstanding, and maybe we have to go away from the rule for this particular time. But as a general rule, we should have representation all over the area. Thank you.
Devil's always in the details. You know, let's have districts, but let's have 6 people, and then you don't have an odd number for a vote. Then you got, well, what if 2 people are from the same neighborhood? I kind of believe in KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And I think when one of the areas recently was getting a little overrepresented, the people kind of rose up and took care of it, and that's not an issue anymore. I trust the voters a lot more, I guess. It's not a fall on my sword issue. If somebody could convince me and show me a study where we could get districts in and it would be fair and help the government, hey, I'm all for it. But I think that's more for the size of Charlotte than the size of Indian Trail. Thank you.
I'm absolutely for districts due to the fact of all the emails I've come across the last several years. Very few residents are being answered with their questions in those emails. As of now, there's only 1 council member on a regular basis who answers the questions and concerns. That's very disturbing. In 2011, there were 2 council members who were outstanding at responding. Those were Gary D'Onofrio and Dr. Stanton. Indian Trail is getting so large that we do need to separate neighborhoods, not just by geography, but by population, make it fair for everyone. I'm also moving for taxation by districts. That way you have to have provision from other districts to bond together to do any type of projects overall in Indian Trail. Like I said, as of now, you have 2 council members from Bonterra, 2 for Brandon Oaks. 2 years ago, you had 4 for Brandon Oaks. Eventually, you might have everyone for this mark. And what's the feeling going to be? Yeah, you put trust in the voters, but still there's the opportunity.
I live in a property area that is 4 or 5 homes per acre type of density. But I enjoy driving out to Highway 84 to where it's a whole lot more spread out. And so I can feel that would be sufficient representation.
I believe Mr. Savoie is next again. Does Indian Trail need more infrastructure to attract commercial development?
I don't know if it needs really that much more, but it does need improvements to our current infrastructure that it has. I believe the cog right now is Old Monroe Road. I believe that the widening of Old Monroe Road would enable businesses and commercial businesses to come into the town. Right now, businesses are saying that they won't come in because there's not a 4-lane road there. I think once we start attracting those businesses again, we will lessen the burden on the taxpayer, on the residential taxpayer, and then we'll have increased revenue from the businesses that are coming in. And it would be nice to eventually get to a 75-25, even a 60-40, where it's residential to business. So I do think infrastructure is needed.
Yes, Indian Trail needs infrastructure, but it needs to be done in the correct manner, not just to do it to say, hey, we need to fix this road, we need to widen this road, we need to do it the correct way, and we need to know why we're doing it. Why do we need infrastructure? Well, it will bring commerce in, commerce will bring jobs, but you also look at property value. It's going to increase everyone's property value. It's also going to increase the mobility of a fire truck trying to get to a fire, or like law enforcement agency trying to get to whatever incident that's bringing that needs attention. The infrastructure is important, and at the rate that Indian Trail is growing, I would like more emphasis to be put on the correct infrastructure than not. It's sort of like, let Farmerdale get 500 horses and then we'll build a barn. My thing is, let's build a barn, then get horses. Let's get a good, solid infrastructure, and then we start to grow. So the problems that we're having now, we're not having in the future. Thank you.
Well, you don't have to live in Indian Trail very long to see that we need infrastructure. And we obviously, I guess it's unanimous at the table, we all want more commerce. I think we need to have a smart growth on that. And right now, and it's not Indian Trail's fault, but with the bypass being put on hold, it's hard to plan where you're going to need the infrastructure when you don't know where 4 freeway exits are going to be in your city. I'm all for spending $1 if it makes it $1.50. And I think infrastructure is important, but I'll agree with everybody so far that it has to be done smart, and we have to, number one issue on the agenda, make sure that that infrastructure doesn't make the roads go faster past our schools. Keep the kids safe, let the business come. Thank you.
Yes, I'm all for infrastructure improvements for Indian Trail. However, you don't widen a highway for economic development. You widen it because of traffic and pedestrian issues. To have a highway just to be the savior for everything is not the right way to go. You focus on your existing businesses, make sure the businesses are allowed to grow within Indian Trail. You have very few businesses now that's been here 25 years or more. You have a plaque at the back of the Civic Building which recognizes Business Hall of Fame. You have to be there 25 years or more. I feel it's going to be in the future very few other names to be added to that plaque. But highways are definitely an issue. You have a Chestnut Parkway, there's no traffic now. Why is it more focused on roads where you have existing problems, intersections where you have backups? Traffic signals are not synchronized correctly, where the traffic even makes it worse for people to get to the intersection. It's not even long enough to make a left turn to get to the intersection.
You have two capable people, Chris King on the town council and Mayor Alvarez, who are part of MUFO, now called Crypto. Contact these gentlemen, see what they can do on the county and state level to help the infrastructure of the highway departments. See, there's pointing fingers back and forth without having proper documentation up front to make any kind of decisions. But without the knowledge, you're going to do a surface, that headache trying to figure this thing out.
I don't believe we need more infrastructure. I just believe, like many candidates believe that we just need to fix the infrastructure that we have. Just to, as was said, to widen a road will not attract the business. You need to make sure the business environment is also correct to attract that business. You need to make sure the tax structure is correct to attract that business. And that is not good. To attract businesses to the Indian Trail. Once the businesses are here, then you increase that tax base and you lessen the burden on the residents that we currently have. I just think it's kind of interesting when you're talking infrastructure that I was watching the WSOC Channel 9 the other day, and their traffic report came on. I thought it was pretty interesting when they're giving the morning traffic updates, and they're talking about little old Indian Trail as taking 27 minutes to get down Highway 74 or whatever. We're actually really that time ahead. I kind of chuckled at that. We were the only little town in the Charlotte area that they highlighted at a time to get from one point to another on Highway 74. That I think we need to look at, make sure we're doing the right thing, and that we fix that problem, not just add more infrastructure. Thank you.
Infrastructure, it's more than roads. Infrastructure includes sidewalks. There is, I'm a little bit frustrated, quite frankly, with our representation right now, with Mumbo, with the new name. I took 3 days off of work when North Carolina DOT came here to have some public, they call it a charrette. And it was, so that the public could come out and speak and meet with the town officials of those that were involved. And that was Matthews, Indian Trail, and Stallings. And this regarded the Overland Road project. And to be out there and just to be a candidate for council and feel like you're the only representation other than some members on the staff to ask the questions, to provide input is very frustrating. I want a more active council person, whoever you decide to elect, to get involved and start working on behalf of the citizens of the Indian Trail. Also, when we're out here rezoning different neighborhoods, we need to take into account how does that impact the sidewalks, and how does that sidewalk impact another community such as Lake Park? We were building a sidewalk down Unionville Indian Trail Road that would service one side of the road in those communities, but on the other side of the road, we're fixing to put in more high-density housing. It's being proposed, but there's no way they can even walk from that community down to Walmart. And what's the problem? Well, we don't know how Lake Park is going to react if we talk to them and reach out about the sidewalk. That's not our area. So as far as infrastructure goes for the roads, I think we need to really look at the roads, look at where the needs are, prioritize it. Don't be making decisions based on crony capitalism. That's a real hard one. When you build roads and that's just for encouragement or for the benefit of the specific business and not all businesses, residents as a whole, that's a problem. Thank you.
Mr. Daniels, you'll be first on this one. Indian Trail has a large geographical area. Does it have enough park and recreation facilities?
Good question. My opinion, because of this large geographical area, no, it does not. We have one side of 74 has its needs, and the other side of 74 has its needs. Right now, the costs that from the construction, planned construction are needed. Costs are important to the city. It's a place of community gathering. It's a place where businesses hold their function. It's a place of relief. It's a place of entertainment. But I believe we do not have enough costs given our large geographical area and how we're spread out. Now we tend to have one side of 74 and the other side of 74. had parks on this side of 74 and the other side, so what about us? So we need parks for both sides, we need parks to adequately address the needs of the citizens. Thank you.
We're currently placing a 104-acre park on one side of 74 and a 40-acre park on this side of 74. And we got a little mini acre park on this side of 74. And I'm all for parks. Believe it or not, I'm on bike ride. I go over to Francis Betty and I go to Sherman Branch and I play frisbee golf at all these communities around here. I think we need to get those two parks up and running before we say we need any more. I also believe that on a scale from 1 to 10, public safety is a 10, keep the kids safe is 11, schools are a 9, parks are a 5. So with the current budget that we have, I don't see we're going to get any money for any more parks. It'd be great to say, yeah, we need them. I don't know how we're going to afford them. And I really want to see both parks get completely online before we look at building any more. Thank you.
Now, last month, I've been canvassing neighborhoods in this campaign. Many of the neighborhoods have their own parks. They have swimming pools, they have walking trails, they have other amenities for young children. So the question is, we're still going to have two large parks to be built. Because we did build them, and that's to be respected. But the question is, will we have enough funding to pay for these parks? Matthews is building a park right now, 160 acres. The price of that one park is $26 million. It has the same amenities we're going to have at Crooked Creek Park in Chestnut Square combined. So how can $8.5 million be enough for two parks, 200 acres total? That's why I was against the park bond. No, I'm not against parks. But there are other ways to get funding for parks besides getting the taxpayer first every time. Just recently in a meeting in August, they're now approaching Mayor Pro Tem David Cohn to go out and also get more funding for these parks. Why? We already have money. If so, where is the other money going to come from? Yes, we do need parks, but there are smarter ways to get these parks without, again, having taxpayers foot the bill, the majority piece of it. To be a proactive approach. During the smart bond last year, why wasn't some of these issues addressed first? Why did we go to the other businesses too, to see if they can donate money for some of the construction? Another idea, why don't you do the sports complex sections first? Get the revenue from those areas, then use that money to build the rest of the parks. Thank you.
Question being about park recreation facilities. If we currently have projects that are being worked on right now, I do believe let's go ahead and finish those projects up. Let's get those parks opened up. If that's what we're committed to as voters, as a council, then let's go ahead and get that done. However, going forward, 3 or 4 questions ago, we answered the question about deputy funding and where is money coming from that. My true belief is that public safety has got to be number one. So if we're questioning funding for deputies, it just follows the reason that we shouldn't be talking about park funding at this point. If we can afford parks are great. I personally live in a community that has its own swimming pool. I don't really frequent many parks in the area, other than I'm always at the pool with the kids. But if we're having an issue how we're going to fund deputies, that's got to be our priority at this point. And parks is something we can look at down the road. Thank you.
Presently, Indian Trail has 3 parks. We have Crossway Paths Park, and it's hardly utilized. But more sadly, is that park was sold for $50,000. So then we have 2 other parks, Chestnut Park and Crooked Creek Park. The Chestnut Park is anchored by a new business, And that takes up 3 acres of it. It's a 48-acre park. What we're trying to do right now is build 2 parks at the same time. I really think sometimes there's lessons learned when you do things. When I built my first bird pen, I made mistakes when I built that pen, and I learned from those mistakes. And then when I built my larger aviary, I incorporated those things, those lessons learned into building that larger aviary.
The 2 parks are north of 74 and south of 74. I think that the 2 parks really do complement each other. The Chestnut Park does have a basketball facility there, but then there also is soccer fields and volleyball courts there and a playground, whereas the other park, Berkeley Creek, actually has baseball fields and some frisbee golf, and some both of them do have walking trails. I think on the funding, the people voted for the park and for the bonds for the park. And at the time when the bonds were issued, you're getting something at less than 2%. Also, the land that was purchased was about 3 times less an acre than what it would normally cost. So it's almost like you're building these 2 parks for the price of 1. And they are supporting 2 different locations within Indian Trail. So I say let's finish these parks, and if any other park issues do come up, then we can address it then. But I think these 2 parks will really facilitate the community well.
Mr. Drehs, this is a 2-part question. Have you voted in every election for the last 10 years, and how many town council meetings have you attended in the last 2 years?
I moved here in January 96, and I can safely say that there has not been an election that I have voted. Let's see. So I know if you've gotten my letter when my volunteers have put those out, I am only sending that letter to people that voted in the 09 and 2009 and 2011 election. That's only 2,700 residents out of 22,000 that live here. And I just find that amazing. I'm currently on the Public Safety Committee, and I attended enough town council meetings where I'm not sure how many I've attended, to be honest. And the ones that I don't attend, I consider routine, and I listen on gratitude just because I can get more out of it, because I can stop it and play it and do all that other good stuff. Thank you.
Have I voted every election since I've lived in Newcastle? Question. 10 years. This 2009, I invited my journalist the reason why. I don't know if I had a kidney stone or a medical condition, or if I worked double shift at the trucking company I was working at the time. But every election, yes, I have. That's my knowledge. Have I been to every council meeting in the past? Two years? Yes, I have, except for probably 3. I have my own seat in the back wall, that people know. They come to look for me when I sit there.
For the town council, I have not been to any meetings. In regards to voting, I am an active voter. Have I hit every election? I will honestly say no, I have not hit every election. But have I missed a lot of elections? I don't keep track how many elections I've been to, sorry.
We can go back to 1987 if we'd like. And I voted in every election.
I have voted in the last 3 or 4 elections. I have not been in the council meeting. Started, I think, maybe in May, but have listened on radio.
I moved into Newcastle in 2005. Since then, I voted in every presidential election, and I would safe to say the past 5 years I voted in every local election. I started attending council meetings in August of this year. I However, I've been active on my HOA to cause conflict with my case and the councilman's case. I've been the president of the HOA and also the president. So I've been active in the community, but not as deeply active in the trade. Thank you.
I believe this is a Faulkenberry subject. Are you in favor of the comprehensive plan for Indian Trail and Pathway of Progress? And I think this will be the last question, and we will have to wrap up.
I do believe comprehensive plan is too detailed, it's too long-term, but yes, Indian Trail does need some type of plan. You've got to have some kind of a template to go by. If not, you're going to have a master house. You're going to have geographical areas where you should have commercial district, or you're going to leave it as rural. But yes, I do believe we do need some type of comprehensive plan and pathways of progress. Again, I think that's something we should
Clear of what's going on.
Yes, I agree with all my candidates that a comprehensive plan is like a skeleton waiting for me to go on. Without that skeleton, we can collapse. What I've heard people emailing me, calling me about the comprehensive plan, what they all said was they want more citizen involvement to make sure that it's have all the ideas, not decided with a few or the council. So keeping that in mind, comprehensive plan is important, but it is also important to have as much citizens involved in that plan so we get as many good ideas to make sure that it's the right thing that we're doing. Thank you.
The comprehensive plan and citizen involvement. I think where Indian Trail is kind of doing a little bit of a disconnect is communicating that. Because a couple months ago at First Baptist, there was a meeting where they were soliciting citizens' comments on, I think it's every 2 or 3 years they do changes to the comprehensive plan. And I think there was more people in this room tonight than there was at that meeting. I'm not saying that the citizens of Indian Trail don't care. I don't think we're communicating it well enough. And I don't know the right answer to that. I know there's a better answer to it. I'm 100% behind the idea of a comprehensive plan. I spoke out at that council meeting that Jerry was talking about against the apartment complex because the world wasn't widened yet. And there is zoning meetings and checks and balances. They don't always work. But our best chance to get the community that we want our kids and grandkids to grow up in is to show up at that comprehensive plan meeting. And I encourage everybody to show up for it. Thank you.
Mr. Haydel, I believe you were the first to start with the wrap-up.
I just want to say in closing, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having us here this evening. Being my first ever forum, I had a good time. Hopefully my daughter's age, she was more entertained and she wasn't to the forum, but that's okay. I think I've learned a tremendous amount, learned a lot about different issues here, to speak with each gentleman to my left and to my right. And, I just want to say, it's up to y'all. Y'all are the people. I want to be your voice in Indian Trail. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Before we end tonight, thank you again for having us, and giving us the opportunity to speak to the folks. What I'd like to see for Indian Trail going forward is a lot more stability. Quite honestly, when I started attending council meetings, someone asked me, I believe it was the mayor, and said, "Oh, you need to bring your neighbor." And then a couple of weeks later, February 16th rolled around and there was the big smackdown of the Union County Sheriff's Department, forming of the police department. And on that night, I really questioned whether I wanted to return or not, and whether I wanted to invite my family and my friends to this meeting, or to those meetings. But you know, there's one thing about me, is that, I don't know if you know this, I am an Eagle Scout. I was in the Boy Scouts, and I got my Eagle over at Indian Trail DSA 276. Out of every 100 people that get involved in scouting, only 3 make it to Eagle Scout. And I kind of feel it's like that with the council. I see new faces come out there, or I see no new faces at all. And sometimes you just have to stick with it. And it's not comfortable. And it's not comfortable to have people come up to you and screaming at you about things, especially if you're a council member. You know, they have issues and concerns that are near and dear to their heart. But the council members need to stick with it and be respectful. And the citizens need to stick with it and be on the council's butt all the way through. I expect to, if I'm elected to Indian Trail Town Council, for you guys to hold me accountable to all these decisions, and you hold me accountable to answer your questions, and not allow me to sit up there with this transparent wall built between myself and you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you, citizens, for attending. I'm also an Eagle Scout. I want to bring professionalism back to the City Council. I want to work with the other gentlemen on the council and engage in collaborative discussion to bring out the best in each of us. I want to ensure that we have the appropriate and adequate public safety in place to serve our citizens, to ensure that economic development does happen, that we do bring jobs to Indian Trail, that we do lessen the burden of the residential taxpayer. I want to ensure that the infrastructure becomes much better than it is now, and focus on how do we get Old Monroe widened as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here this evening. And, I have an agenda for Indian Trail. I want to get Indian Trail moving forward. I want to keep it moving forward. I want to make sure that the seniors are addressed by giving tax reductions, by giving the disabled veterans tax reductions if and when the next tax increase occurs. I want to make sure that we have a voice in Union County to address our school needs, because I think every child should have a fair education, not just because they're in Wellington or they're in Western Capital, but because they're in Union County. I want to bring commerce and jobs to Union County. I also want to make sure that the government here is responsible and accountable to the citizens of Union County. I've heard this word, transparency, and I've attended the meetings, and the only time there may be some transparency is if they go into closed session. The record's a public record, so I think that's the problem that we have now, is that our current council is not unified, and that's something I want to do, is bring unity to the council, professionalism to the council. So when we appear in print in the newspaper, we were professional and people want to come in and trail. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having us here, and you do all this great job hosting us. I want to thank the time.
If there's an issue with the school within Indian Trail, I encourage you to contact Richard Drehs, school board chairman. Also, we have a county commissioner by the name of Todd Johnson that lives in Indian Trail. Contact him by all means. If there's problems with the schools, get out and let them know there are problems. I just want to make changes to get involved. Also, I'd like to thank the fellow candidates here. Again, different viewpoints, probably the same views and many issues, maybe a different way of getting there. There's nothing wrong with that. It might take longer to get there, maybe shorter, it might be cheaper, it might be more expensive. And it's up to the voter which way you want to go. But I can assure you, all of us, by us being up here tonight, we took the effort to be involved. We want to make a difference. We do want to reach out to the public. We do want to represent Indian Trail overall.
Come November the 5th, you will be able to vote for 2 of these. There were 2 other candidates, but they have dropped out, so I'm assuming that these 6 will be the ones on the ballot. Early voting will start about 2 weeks before November 5th. I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank the candidates, especially for their thoughtful answers, and let's give them a hand.